Alright, so I don't know if you can see this little, there's the gray matter, there's the white matter, and you can see the ganglion. So this is how it's situated in your vertebra. This is actually a cervical one. How do I know it's a cervical vertebra? Because it's got the extra holes. See those extra holes? So that's how I know it's a cervical. So hopefully the spinous process, hopefully you got the body. Hopefully that looks familiar to you. If you want to pause this video for a second, and you can write this down, because this is also on your sheet. So I have this. This is your spine. So this is the dorsal side. Even if I didn't know the dorsal side, I could trace that dorsal root there. So take yourself a second and write down, and then pause me, and then I'm going to continue. Okay. So let's start. We said just a second ago this was our white matter, and I said there was a very thin layer that touched it. That's the pia mater. Do you remember from the outward to inward to deep, superficial to deep, it went DAP, dura mater, arachnoid mater, pia mater? Same thing going on in the spinal. So the one that's touching is actually the pia mater. And then out a little bit further from that is the arachnoid mater, and then out from that is, that's this one here, is the dura mater. So you've got, that's your meninges again. Those are those protective layers. So there's that DAP again, or pad if you prefer to go the other direction. But I was going outward, inward. So DAP, dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. So I want to say that because do you see the dura mater here? And there's your vertebra, your spine there. There's this epi, means on top of, epi, and this is the dura mater. That's known as epidural space, right in there, epidural space. It is mostly fat. You can see there it contains fat. So epi means on top of. So some of you probably have had an epidural before. If you've had a child, you may have had an epidural. I did not. I had both of my children without an epidural naturally, so I was too scared of the needle because it's so close to my spinal cord. I didn't want to take a chance. So anyway, probably too much information there. But I didn't get an epidural. But some of you may have had an epidural. So that's where they put the needle there. They put that needle right there in that spot right there. So just FYI. So epidural space. So if you know where the dura mater is, on top of that, by that spinous process, actually it goes all the way through here, but that is epidural space there. This is actually epidural space down here too, but that's not where they put the... Anyway, so we're going to then go on, because let's look here. We've got subdural space. Okay, so space is just like space between things. Sub means under. Subdural, so right underneath the dura mater, there's another little space. That's the subdural space. Makes sense. Okay, and then you got another layer, which was the arachnoid mater. It does have the spider webby looking thing, and I'll show you in the model. So in that spider webby looking area is where the subarachnoid space is, and you do have spinal fluid there as well. So you have spinal fluid here, and you do have spinal fluid there. If you go back to your meninges in your brain, that's where you had some spinal fluid as well. Alright, so maybe you got that label. Well, maybe you can see, you could use this to help you study, but do you see the little, there's that ganglion, so we know this is the dorsal side, this is the ventral side, so that might help you. So that is the ventral horn of the gray matter. You do not have to put of the gray matter, okay, on your practice quiz. Okay, so now we are looking at the lateral horn, and there is the dorsal horn. There is the posterior or dorsal column. Again, I like dorsal, but you, whatever floats your boat there. And so this is, it's not pointing to that pink. We're not learning all that. This got more things in it. So that's just pointing to the side. That is the lateral column. And this is the ventral column or anterior column if you prefer. And that's pointing to the central canal. And this is where they're coming together. Notice they're coming together there. That is the spinal nerve. The little bitty parts where they're going back off, that's the ramus. Okay, so that is the dorsal root ganglion. Alright, so now this is pointing to the outer blue area, that very thin layer that is touching that. And so that there is the dura mater there. Pia mater is on this. Okay, the pia mater is on this. Pia mater here. Okay, that is the dura mater here. Pia mater here. The little blue one is the arachnoid mater. So let's do that. So the pia mater is actually touching the white matter. This is the arachnomater, which is the light blue one, and the outermost is the dura mater. Okay, so dura mater, arachnoid mater, pia mater. Alright, so that says pointing to the gray. So dura mater was the blue. This is pointing to the gray, the layer. It says layer. I actually will put layer or space because that way you know what the heck I'm wanting. Okay, so this is the arachnoid mater. And the layer that goes around the white matter is the pia mater. Alright, so now this is the same as over here. That would be the dorsal root. You're not seeing a ganglion over here. There's a ganglion. Okay, this would be the ventral root. And way out here, which is odd, but remember the outer blue one was the dura mater. So this is basically the table. You see everything in the table? So that would all be your epidural space. Your epidural space. Epidural space all around, epi meaning upon the dura mater. So all the space around there. Mostly composed of fat. Alright, the space that is between the blue, which is the dura mater, and the gray, which is the arachnoid mater, that space is underneath the dura mater, so that is the subdural space. Subdural space. And so all this space here, and this is going to give itself away. Do you see all, it looks webby. You see all the webby look? All that space. There is spinal fluid in this. Remember, spinal fluid's coming out of the central canal. So this webby looking area here, that is the arachnoid space, subarachnoid space. Sub meaning under, right? Subarachnoid space. So dura mater, arachnoid mater, space in between, subdural space, arachnoid mater, pia mater, space in between, subarachnoid space. And I will ask for space, so you'll know whether I want the layer, which is the mater, or the space itself. Okay, this is the way the model looks in lab. Here's where they put that epidural. That's that fat there. So this is that same picture. It's just turned from what we had in lab or on the sheet there. Okay, so I've got it blown up just a little bit. So this is the outer layer. So this is the dura mater. Okay, that's bone. That's the epidural space there where the fat is. Okay, so that is the dura mater. This is on top of the dura mater, the epidural space. Inner layer, so not the dura mater, but that one there, that is the arachnoid mater. The space in between, it's underneath the dura mater, so that's the subdural space. Remember, if you can remember DAP, that will help. Okay, and this is actually touching the white matter itself, so that is the pia mater. Remember, the pia mater is actually touching it, and the space in between, and it really does have that spider webby looking stuff, that is the subarachnoid